Do you know what this classic quilt block is? Stay tuned, we're gonna make this block. I have a fun interview with my friend Claudia, and she inspired me to try my hand at this classic quilt block. Hi, thanks for joining us at True Blue Quilts. I'm Andy, and this is a place to enjoy, experiment, and excel as you quilt. Let's take a listen to Claudia's quilt journey, and then we'll dive into the tutorial for our classic churn dash quilt block. Tell us how you got started quilting. I always like to know people's origin stories.
Yep. Well, I started about 30 years ago, and my mother had a stroke, and so I was home helping her out a little bit. And I had always thought of starting to quilt in the back of my head, but I never really did anything about it. And she needed to get out of the house after she was recuperating for a while. And so my first trip, I said, let's just go to a fabric, just something. And she doesn't sew or anything. So I taught myself. And so it was just a way to get her out of the house. And I wanted to see, maybe I'll buy some fabric. And I bought way too much for my first quilt, but it was a nice outing for both of us. And that's how I started. So,
oh, that's great. Quilting can be very good therapy in a lot of ways, and just, being around all the colorful fabric. So what was that first project that you quilted?
The first one, actually, I have it here.
Oh, awesome.
It's big. It's like I took on way more than I could handle. It's this quilt. It's hard to see. It was all, I didn't have a sewing machine. So I didn't really know anything about it. And I just got a pair of scissors and I drew out some templates, and you can't look too closely at this quilt.
Well, but I love it. Fabulous. Yeah. That's definitely a treasure. So what are you working on currently?
Things for my blog. I do a quilt along every month, and so that keeps me busy too. So
yes, that's fantastic. What do you do with all your quilts? If you're doing a quilt along a month, you must be building up quite a stack of finished quilts.
Well, I do. It's one block a month, I should say. It's a block of the month type thing. I have been keeping most of them, but I'm slowly starting to think, well, I'm running out of space. And it's time for me to I thought about selling them. I'm not, but some of them I just can't part with. I like them, and they sort of are special to me. So, and then I do donate some as well. So
oh, wonderful. Yeah, they tend to be like your children. You love them all, and it's hard to give them up. You said you bought way too much fabric for that first project. Is your stash continuing to grow, or have you learned some tricks to keep it manageable?
Well, I learned some tricks, and about 2 years ago, I sort of made a concerted effort. Like, I have got to cut this down. And I had fabrics from, 30 years ago. And so I said, no, I'm not going to buy much fabric, if at all. And it really has cut it down. I use a lot of my scraps for backing.
Oh, okay.
And especially the pieces that I'm just, I need to get rid of, and I'm tired of seeing them. And then there are other pieces I don't think I'll ever get rid of, and I don't even want to cut them. So
right, they do become those treasured mementos, and they definitely have stories to tell. So
right,
that's wonderful. Are you a dedicated, superior, always do things right quilter and pre-wash your fabric when it comes in the door, or where do you fall on that controversy?
Well, I used to always pre-wash everything. I'm slowly not, especially like pre-cuts, I don't pre-wash anymore. And if I'm in a hurry to make something, then no, I don't pre-wash. But as a rule, I really am a pre-washer. I've been burned a lot of times, and I have some lovely red stains on, pieces, and there's nothing worse than finishing something and then washing it, and it's, you're like, oh no, what happened? So
right. And another kind of quilters divide. Do you hand or machine bind your quilts?
Well, I'll sew it to the front, but then I do hand bind. I love that. That's actually my favorite process, is just finishing it off by hand. I'll sit in front of the movie, good movie or something, and I get into a real rhythm. and it's just really relaxing. And I actually used to hand quilt all my quilts, but then I had tons of hand problems, and I've had some surgeries, and I just can't. I can maybe do small pieces, but now I can't do it so much anymore. So that part really takes me back to my, when I started. So
yeah. You mentioned you had done a lot of hand quilting. Do you do your own machine quilting now, or do you hire that out?
It's like a 50-50.
Yeah.
My small pieces I'll do. I don't have a long arm. I would love to get a long arm machine. So my big pieces, I don't. I can't do at home. I mean, I guess I could if I tried real hard. The biggest I've ever done on my machine is like a large double. And that was pushing it. So
how would you describe your quilting style?
Oh, probably traditional. I would say traditional, trying to move a little bit more modern, but I actually do love the traditional, and I really love scrap quilts. That's really I just love playing with different fabrics and, seeing where the colors take me, that kind of thing.
When you are working on a Scrappy project, do you stay within a certain color theme, or are you one of these people that every color can go in every quilt?
I'm usually every color can go in every quilt, but if I don't have, I'll use what I have. Okay. So, but sometimes I do like the monochrome where it's all like purple or blue or pink or something like that. But honestly, I think any colors can almost go with anything.
Tell us about your quilting bucket list, or what projects, techniques, things that you still want to try.
Well, number one, I'd love to get a long arm machine. I mean, that's like a long-term goal. Save up the money for that thing. But I just would love to do that. I think I love to see the smooth patterns that people do and just the beautiful, intricate quilting that they do. And I am not much of a paper piecer, and I don't really care for it, because the times I've tried it, paper gets everywhere, and it's something I would like to try again. It's just not top of my list, I guess I should say, but
sure. Besides paper piecing, that's a nice segue. Do you have any quilting fears or dislikes?
Curves are not my favorite, although I'm learning that. So I'm working on that, trying to make it smoother. I bought a new ruler that's been helping me out.
What is the biggest quilt project that you've attempted?
A king size.
Yeah. Were you using big blocks, or were you doing it was
like a hourglass block, and it was totally scrappy. I mean, that's probably the scrappiest I've ever done. And then I did hand quilt that one. Oh, and that took so long. And that was sort of the impetus for saying, wait a minute, what am I doing? I can't do this anymore. It took, I don't know how long to hand quilt that thing. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. At some point you just stop keeping track.
Right.
So go to the other end of the spectrum. What is the smallest quilt project that you have done or enjoy doing?
I like doing minis, like 14, maybe 15 inches. I've done like some mug rugs. I'll do those too, but I do like doing minis, and I'm sort of getting into those more. I don't know if it's because they're quicker finishes, or I'm not sure why, but maybe because I'm running out of space to store all the stuff I'm making. So,
oh, sure.
Because I do like working with small pieces, but then I want to make a smaller quilt. I don't like to make a big quilt out of really teeny tiny pieces.
Sure. Tell us about your shopping strategy. What section of the quilt store do you head to first?
Well, I head straight to the sale rack, and I like to check it out and see if there's anything maybe I've been waiting for to go on sale, or some fabric I never even thought of getting and it's on sale. And after that, usually when I go to the quilt store, I'll make a list of what I need, get that next if I can find what I'm looking for. And then usually I end up getting sidetracked.
Well, sure.
Right. Find some more stuff that I don't need, but I try really hard to stick within my list.
You shop by color. Are you looking for any certain designer or style of print?
Honestly, I shop by color. And I don't know if that's because I like the scrappy look or something, but I definitely, if I think maybe I need some coral fabric, I like to look at all the corals, and I don't really look at the designers so much. If something strikes me, then, that's what I'll pick up.
So tell us about the quilts on the wall behind you.
The red and white arrows is a pattern I celebrated when I hit 10,000 YouTube subscribers.
Oh, nice.
So I did a free pattern over there, and it's just called Every Which Way. And I did this, I have it in 3 different sizes on my website. So this is the medium size.
Okay.
And then behind me is just a Scrappy fish, and it just another scrap quilt with all my different corals, and then the neutral background. And
yeah, that just is scrappy and wonderful. I love all the shades of coral that you use there for the fish, and then the scrappy background just is fun.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. What is the favorite quilt that you've ever made?
This is my all-time favorite. I made 3 of these. It's my dad's handkerchiefs.
Okay.
So when he passed away, he always had a handkerchief in his pocket or in his jacket. And I always joked with him. I said, Dad, I want those handkerchiefs. And then when he passed away, like I said, my mom, he had some in his nursing home room, and then my mother had a bunch. And I said, don't throw those out.
Right.
So I just made like a little wall hanging for me and my brother, and then one for my mother as well. So
that's wonderful. I have heard so much about using ladies' handkerchiefs, that have more floral designs, but that's a lovely tribute to use the men's handkerchiefs.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, what a treasure. Advice for beginning quilters. What do you like to encourage those new to the craft?
Start small. Don't start with a big double or queen size quilt. And I would suggest taking a class. I never took a class when I started out, and I definitely think books, but also I think taking a beginner class, simple beginner level class, just to get some idea, so you don't go to the store, because you go to a quilt store and you can get totally overwhelmed and think, well, I need 20 yards of this and 10 yards of this, and it can get overwhelming. So
yes. I thought of another question. You said you're hoping to get a long arm someday. How many sewing machines do you actually have at the moment?
2. And
Okay.
I have one, like a workhorse I've had since my first, when I started machine quilting, and it just does the trick, for real easy sewing. And then I bought a new one about maybe 3 years ago,
Okay.
which is a nicer, and I can do a lot of more stitches, different kind of applique stitches, that kind of thing. So
Tell us about your website and your YouTube channel.
okay, it's my website's createwithclaudia.com. And I've been doing it for about 3 years, and I write mostly tutorials. I like to write small free patterns, and then also I put in some tips, that sort of thing. And then my YouTube channel, same thing. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll write a tutorial on my website, maybe put a PDF on there too for the free pattern. But then I also like to do tutorials. So I sort of have them all 3, website and then my YouTube, sort of mimic each other.
Oh, great. Claudia shared a picture of this block on her Facebook page, and I was inspired to sit down and make one of my own. Watch as I create. For the smaller churn dash block, I need a 2.5 inch strip for my half square triangles and a 1.5 inch strip for my bar section. And for the larger section, I need 6.5 inch for the half square triangles and 3.5 inch for the bars. So I need 4 pairs of fabric for the bars. And that was I'm gonna cheat just a little bit on that one to make it line up. I love my easy angle ruler for cutting half square triangles from strip sets. So I can easily get my half square triangles out of just the width of fabric that I need. This leftover piece is just enough to make the last bar unit that I needed for the large, smaller portion. Again, I'm going to use my easy angle ruler to get these 4 half square triangles for the corners of my churn dash. I need just one 2.5 inch square for the center. You match your pieces right sides together when you cut, then you're ready to just take your units to the sewing machine. And there we are with all of our pieces cut. I am going to just sew this in one chain unit since I have everything cut. Then I have my full chain of pieces that I can take to the ironing board. I like to trim all my units. I don't like chain piecing from a chain, webbing some people call it, and plus I've got these blocks out of order, so I'm just going to trim them so I have my stacks of what I need. I'm going to lay them face with the dark side up since I'll be pressing to the dark on those, and same with my half square triangles, and then I will trim up my half square triangles so that they are ready to go. Okay, our block lock ruler just lays right on top there, and I turned my ruler around. I had the groove on the block lock ruler lays on top of your seam, and I know I cut my pieces 6.5 and this ruler is 6.5, so I've got way too much hanging off this end. That just means I need to turn my ruler around, and then I will be able to square up that unit. And rotating mats are a wonderful addition to the block lock system. So I can trim off that dog ear. That's all I needed to get off that one block, and then just a hair off that edge. So that one's done. Then same thing with this one. I am looking to make sure that all my edges come out to that 6.5, and I just need to trim off the dog ears on most of these with that easy angle ruler and working with strips that you know are the right size, then there is very little trimming and fabric waste on these because they are accurate from the very beginning. And this one is a little short, so I'm going to split the difference so that I'll have a scant 1/4 inch seam there, and that little bit will be taken up in the seam allowance. And then these are my little guys. So I want to again make sure that the corner of the ruler seam groove is right in the corner of my block, and these do need a little more trimming than the other blocks. So I am going to trim 2 sides, rotate my mat, and slide that block lock ruler down into position to cut the other 2 sides. And that one's done. Get the fabric scraps out of the way. And again, that groove is not hitting the corner of my fabric, so I need to turn my ruler around and line it up so that I've got my fabric centered there. Spin my mat, slide my ruler so that the edges line up again. And if you position things correctly, you can get away with trimming only 2 sides of your triangle block. So we'll try that trick again here. Yep, 2. Well, actually that side bows out a little bit, so we will have to spin this last one as well to get nice, accurate units when we start. Okay, so we are ready to sew the small churn dash. I like to get my pieces laid out before going to the sewing machine. So I know this is my center. I have my stripes on all 4 sides and my corners point in like that. I'll start at the top right and just fold over to the center column to sew those 3 pieces together. And you saw me flip this unit. So this is how the orientation of these blocks is in the overall block. And so I need to turn this one over this way. But then I look at my seams and they're pointing up, and I don't want those flaps to go up underneath my presser foot. So I'm going to turn that whole unit over after I've gotten it flipped one on top of the other correctly. And this way, as my presser foot goes over those seams, it keeps everything nice and flat. And then I can flip the units over again when I get to that stage. So I pull my chain off the machine, cut everything apart, and then I'm ready to add the next piece as I fold that unit over. Sometimes it's really hard to tell if you've got tone on tone white fabric the right side up, so I like to put it on a darker surface, either my dark cutting mat or a dark pair of pants that I may have on, and then you can tell which side looks nice and bright from the printing or which side is dull and obviously the wrong side of the material. So right sides together for this middle row. And again, right sides together for our bottom row, but I see that that seam flap is pointing the wrong direction, so I'm going to feed it through the machine upside down. Grab some other leader ender units. Just help you conserve thread and not have to worry about those tails when you start. And a quick press for these units. I'm going to press everything towards these stripe rows and away from the triangles. So towards that red bar. So because I pressed everything towards that red bar, I can get those seams to nest, and I will take a pin and insert it right along that seam to keep everything in place as I sew these rows. And now I can start on my top and bottom row here of my other unit, just as a leader ender thing. I know that these bars line up against the half square triangle units. There is the mini churn dash. This is a 6.5 inch block. It'll go right in the center of the bigger block. I pressed my small center block and squared it up to make sure it was 6.5 inches, and we'll work with these other blocks. So I am going to chain piece with this larger block, long seam. I am just guiding the fabric through and making sure these additional seams lay flat the direction that I want them, and I'm watching my 1/4 inch guide. So there's half the block. Since I am aiming right for where that diagonal line intersects this seam, I can see it through my fabric. I'm looking for that diagonal of that corner. I was able to hit it there, and then my points look really good. When I pin, I want the part that needs more attention to be on the top, so that's why I want this center block to be on the top as I feed it through the machine, so I can watch that all those seams are going in the right direction and that I'm not chopping off those points. You can always stop to readjust. I like my machine set so that it stops with the needle down, and then I can get everything else situated, find my stylus, my purple thing, so that I can keep that fabric feeding underneath the presser foot just the way I want it. Those ends matched up, and I like to hang on to that bottom edge of my seam so that things don't get wonky there right at the very end. You've put in all this work. You want everything to line up all the way to the end. So just hold on to it, feed it through, watching that everything is straight there to the very end. You see my fingers are right on that fabric all the way past the needle. And our nested churn dash is ready for one last press. These are really fun because you end up with such big blocks, 18 inches across. You just need 3 across to have a really nice size quilt. Of course, if you want to play with some different fabric combinations, making a bunch of the smaller sizes and maybe framing 2 sides of that would be a really fun border. Use these smaller churn dash as cornerstones in your quilt. So many fun layouts with the nested churn dash. Be sure to hit the subscribe button for this channel so you don't miss my next video all about my favorite quilts I've ever made. In the meantime, let's make a split 9 patch. You can get the tutorial in this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.